Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Kenil Gale. Technology Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley is reassuring Jamaicans this evening that no internet service provider will be given preferential treatment in Jamaica. The minister's pronouncement comes a day after changes were made to net neutrality laws in the United States. Andrew Laidley tells us more.
It's a level playing field in Jamaica where net neutrality is concerned. That's the word from Technology Minister Andrew Wheatley, who says Jamaica has always championed equal internet traffic for all.
There's no internet service provider will be allowed to throttle, and what that simply means that you selectively give preference to one entity over another. It is equal opportunity, and persons, once you have paid for your data plan, you are free to use your data whichever way, whenever you want, once it is being done in a legal way.
Minister Wheatley explained that the developments in the U.S. regarding net neutrality does not have any immediate implication for Jamaica.
The decision yesterday by the FCC to abandon the whole concept of net neutrality is something that pertains to that particular jurisdiction. Jamaica and the government, and by extension Jamaica, believes in net neutrality, that the net should be free and everyone should and must have equal opportunity when it comes to data.
In the meantime, the minister says consultations are still ongoing regarding the data protection bill. But he says once the bill passes through the House, Jamaica will be at the forefront of the ICT industry in the region.
Well, the data protection bill was tabled in October in Parliament, and we put in place a joint select committee to examine this particular bill. We have invited stakeholders from all cross-section, whether it's the banking sector, the private sector organization, any entity, JITSA, Computer Society, legal fraternity, whichever entity that is out there, the BPO sector. In fact, we have done an extensive public awareness campaign to ensure that we get comments from persons who would want to contribute to the development of this bill, because once this bill passes through the House, it should be one that is very comprehensive and ensure that Jamaica is at the forefront as it relates to utilizing ICT, building out a digital society and creating investment opportunities for our people.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Laidley.
Meanwhile, the opposition People's National Party, PNP, says it is affirming its commitment to fully supporting the principle and application of net neutrality in Jamaica. The party says it has taken note of the ruling by the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, in the United States to repeal the 2015 net neutrality rules. Opposition spokesman on science and technology, Julian Robinson, says net neutrality is an important principle in maintaining a free and open internet. He argues that its application will ensure a level playing field, particularly for entrepreneurs and small businesses, which depend on unimpeded access to the internet to develop new products and services. The opposition spokesman says, as a small developing country, innovation is critical to Jamaica's growth and development. In the meantime, the Ministry of Technology is partnering with the Universal Service Fund, USF, and the Caribbean Maritime University to provide ICT training for some 1,000 unattached youths. Technology Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley says it's part of a wider thrust to establish Jamaica as a digital country. Here's more.
Technology Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley says he's focused on making Jamaica a digital society. That's why the Ministry of Technology is establishing partnerships to equip young people with the skills they'll need to thrive in the competitive ICT industry.
As a government, we recognize the importance of ICT as a critical pillar for economic growth and development. In fact, I think this ministry PS, and I think Jamaica recognizes by now that the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology is really the most critical ministry when it comes to self-empowerment and achieving real economic growth and development.
He says the program plans to initially train 1,000 youths, but he notes it's not limited to that.
Top 1,000 in the first year seeks to employ 1,000 Jamaicans between the age of 18 to 35. Now, We will be drawing persons from the unattached youth, that group of unattached youths, high school graduates, tertiary graduates, and just any any Jamaican that wants to be a part of the program. So 1,000 young people will be employed for 1 year.
Minister Wheatley says after the training, young people should be able to land top ICT jobs.
It's not only about employment, because we have a number of programs out there that seeks to create employment opportunities for people. But for the first time, you will see a program that not only seeks to provide employment opportunities, but also training. A critical component is training. And so after they have graduated from this program, they should be equipped to go out there and get their own jobs.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Laidley.
The National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, is warning members of the public who may be seeking to purchase pets as gifts for the Christmas season to be careful not to buy protected species. Protected animals include the yellow-billed and black-billed parrots, the crested quail dove, the Jamaican parakeet, the American crocodile, the Jamaican slider turtle, and the Jamaican boa snake. NEPA is reminding the public that it is an offense under the Wildlife Protection Act to have in your possession any protected animal or to hunt, kill, capture, or willfully molest any of these animals. Individuals found guilty of any of these offenses may be charged a maximum fine of $100,000 or face 1 year imprisonment. Still to come, Grace Kennedy reshuffles its deck of managers. We'll tell you who is going where after the break. Welcome back. Grace Kennedy Group CEO Don Webby has announced senior management changes within the group. The changes will take effect on January 1. Anthony Morgan reports.
Come January 1, GK Foods International Business will have a new CEO. Andrea Coy will take over from Ryan Mack. Grace Kennedy says its manufacturing and distribution operations in the USA, Canada, and the UK will now fall under Mrs. Coy's remit, as well as the company's continued expansion into West Africa and Europe. She will also have responsibility for Grace Kennedy's distribution operations in Latin America and the Caribbean. The GK Group says in this new role, Andrea Coy will continue to lead the Global Category Management Unit as the company renews its commitment to a marketing-led, customer-centric approach to doing business. Meanwhile, Ryan Mack will take up the role of CEO of GK Foods Domestic Business. His portfolio will include the Hilo Food Stores, GK's manufacturing operations in Jamaica, GK's local distribution operations, which comprises Grace Foods and Services, World Brand Services, and the recently acquired Consumer Brands Limited. Both Andrea Coy and Ryan Mack will continue to report to Group CEO Don Webby. In making the announcements, Mr. Webby said Ryan Mack is well respected internationally in the foods business. Mr. Webby says the group is happy to have him back in Jamaica to build on the significant growth that they've been experiencing in certain core areas. He says he's confident that the changes will improve efficiencies and further streamline the organization. Other announced changes include the appointment of Derek Reckford as the acting president and CEO of Grace Kennedy Foods USA. The current Chief Financial Officer CFO of GK Money Services, GKMS, Margaret Campbell, will be appointed Country Manager for the Jamaican operations of GKMS and will report to CEO Michelle Allen. And Stephen Whittingham is to be appointed to the company's Executive Committee. The Executive Committee's chaired by the group CEO and has executive leadership responsibility for overseeing the group's operations. In the meantime, Mr. Whittingham will continue in his roles as Chief Investment Officer for the GK Group and Managing Director of GK Capital Management and GK Investments. He will continue to have responsibility for devising and executing strategy across GK businesses. For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
The Executive Committee of the Jamaica Civil Service Association, JCSA, has rejected the government's latest wage offer. The union says the government's offer of 3% increases in years 1 and 2 of the 2017 to 2019 contract period are unacceptable. The government is arguing that based on a compensation review and the concerns expressed by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the country is hard-pressed to meet the wage target of 9% of GDP by the end of fiscal year 2019. The government has also frozen all allowances for civil servants. However, the JCSA says based on the sacrifices made by public sector workers, the offer is unacceptable and should be increased. The union says allowances, particularly the reimbursable and activity-based ones, should also be unfrozen. Meanwhile, the JCSA says it has no confidence in the figures and assumptions the government has used to project the wage to GDP trajectory, arguing that the 9% of GDP target is infeasible given the lack of growth in the economy. In the meantime, the union says should the government continue to show scant regard for its membership, normalcy within the public sector cannot be guaranteed beyond next Friday. Research supervisor at the Caribbean Policy Institute, CAPRI, Dr. Diana Thornburn, says unpaid care work is critical to any economy. That's why she's calling for the care economy in Jamaica to be monetized. She was a guest on the latest episode of BATV's business discussion show, On Point. Norda Francis Williams reports.
In November, the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, CAPRI, launched a study titled Women and the Care Economy. According to research supervisor Dr. Diana Thorburn, the care economy refers to the numerous unpaid or underpaid work that makes paid work possible. These, she says, include social reproduction, caring for the elderly, cleaning the house, or even cooking. She says the survey was the first of its kind to be done in Jamaica and the English-speaking Caribbean, and the findings weren't surprising. Some 500 individuals from St. Mary, Kingston, and St. Andrew were surveyed in the pilot study.
More men than women are employed. So are working, doing... So
we know that from the labor force survey.
We know that
already.
They're employed. There are more female-headed households. We know that already. Female-headed households have more children and elderly in them. Females rely far more on remittances than men do. Women spend half the time that men do on paid work, and men spend half the time that women do on unpaid work.
Oh.
Yes. Women spend on average 249 minutes a day on unpaid care work.
Dr. Thorburn says the care economy needs to be accounted for more than it is now.
The issue is that unpaid care work is critical to any country and any economy. And in not recognizing it in what we call the system of national accounts, then it doesn't get factored in labor market policy, economic policy, policies that really matter. To now, for the most part, care economy considerations have been part of women's policy or gender policy. Due to a number of reasons, the care economy is a hot topic, only on gender agendas or women's agendas. It's now on the mainstream economic agenda.
The research supervisor says the report took advantage of that opening and explored the effects of the local care economy on the overall local economy.
We have to look at how we understand unpaid work. What is unpaid work versus paid work? As it's now classified, unpaid work is care work for children, care for elderly and disabled, also community work. Paid work is working in an establishment, working for the government, working in a business, small-scale farming, even on your own family garden. and working not in an establishment, so operating a hairdressing business from home or selling clothes from time to time out of your home.
BATV News, I'm Norda Francis Williams.
Come Monday, the company's Office of Jamaica COJ says it will be rolling out amended company incorporation and annual return forms. These new documents come after amendments to the Companies Act took effect in June. Customers using the new forms will now be required to provide the names of persons who are considered beneficial owners of the company. This is in accordance with the requirements of the new Act. Under the Act, a beneficial owner is anyone who exercises ultimate ownership of a company or the individual on whose behalf the shares are held or on whose behalf a share transaction is conducted. A beneficial owner under the amended Act must be an individual, even in circumstances where an entity is owned by a company. The new forms, along with samples, can be downloaded from the agency's website at www.orcjamaica.com. And stay with us. Regional and international stories are after the break. Welcome back. Time now for regional and international stories. Vendors in Port of Spain, Trinidad are pleading with the mayor to allow them to sell on the streets this Christmas season. They say if they're not allowed to do so, they won't make a profit. Here's more.
The Charlotte Street Vendors Association, Junior Lewis, says the vendors have not been granted extra vending days this Christmas, something which has been happening for about 11 years. He says if they are not given the opportunity to stay on the streets from Monday, they will lose income.
We are seeing that the country is hard, right? Most of the vendors are single mothers, right? 159 vendors, and most of them are single parents, single mothers. You understand? And the corporation allow the illegal vendors to vend whole year on Charlotte Street, whereas we are paying a license to vend, right? Now they come at this last hour and saying that the businessmen complaining, that Doma complaining, and the fire and the police complaining.
He says officials had the entire year to deal with this matter, so why didn't they? Mr. Lewis says vendors opposite to where they are not paying rent, so they can sell their goods cheaper, another problem they face.
We're struggling with the rain, you understand? We're struggling with the sun, loss of income. So we look forward for these little few days, well it's 6 days now, because it's really from the 18th, 19th, the 20th, and then the 25th, the 26th, and the 27th. That's all we're asking for.
Yeah.
And the rest of the days we're paying for it already.
That's right.
And they're not granting us this.
And Crystal Daniel tells us the issue of illegal vending is making their situation worse.
All right, you get us off the street, and I'm telling you, they wouldn't get the rest of the streets. And it's hard for us because we are paying to sell on those few days. So why just to give us those extra days? We're looking forward for that every year. It's 11 years straight without a warning. They did that, and that's not fair to people. They don't do things like that.
Some of the vendors say they have already purchased fruits to be sold, and with these being perishable items, they aren't sure what to do. Rishi Harinanan, CNews.
Brazil's president is pushing ahead with plans to shake up the country's generous pension system. Al Jazeera's John Holman reports.
This is Brazil as much of the world sees it. Sun and sand, a paradise for the young and beautiful. In reality, the country has become the promised land of the old. Its pensions are among the most generous in the world, with many eligible to retire and start getting payouts while still in their 50s. But the government says if that continues, it will lead to financial disaster.
If we don't change things in 10 years, pension payments could take up 80% of the federal budget. That's going to seriously restrict spending in education, health and security.
On Thursday, the government presented Congress with an updated version of a controversial reform from President Temer. It would set a minimum pensionable age, 65 for men, 62 for women, and reduce payouts. It's been scaled back from the original, but still isn't going down well with Brazilians. These hunger strikers are just a sign of a population that sees the safety of its retirement years suddenly threatened.
We are starving ourselves for a few days so that Brazilians won't starve for the rest of their lives.
Many economists are also sceptical of the reform. 200 of them have signed a statement saying the government has fiddled the figures to give the sense of impending crisis.
There's all this scaremongering that in 2030 all the budget will be spent on pensions. It's false because the government isn't including in its figures all the resources created to finance pensions.
Economists do agree that the pension system needs to change in a country with a struggling economy and ageing population. Some advocate gradual action, but President Temer knows he's running out of time. The president was desperate to get this reform through Congress before the Christmas break, and that's now not going to happen. That's going to make things even more difficult for him, because when these lawmakers come back next year, it's going to be election season in Brazil, and they're going to be even less willing to support what is a very unpopular measure. As the year ends, an unpopular president who'd staked his legacy on this reform is seeing it slip away. John Holman, Al Jazeera, Brasilia.
Workers in Greece staged a one-day protest today, shutting down government offices, trains and the media. Unions called for the strike action in response to next year's budget, which contains further spending cuts in line with Greece's austerity program. More in this report.
The ruling Syriza party was once the organizer of these protests. As it prepares to pass its third austerity budget, the unions are its bitter enemies.
Teachers' salaries have fallen by 40%, spending on schools has fallen by 60%, and the number of staff has been reduced, while new hires aren't happening.
If any other government had done what Syriza is doing, it would have called for a strike. Through this budget, public hospitals will receive 600 million euros less next year. Patients will be in greater danger.
The spending cuts ought to please Greece's creditors, the Eurozone and the International Monetary Fund. They want the country to spend the equivalent of 3.5% of its economy repaying bailout loans. Next year's budget aims to achieve that for the first time. But that doesn't stop the state payroll from being increased by $500 million as more Syriza loyalists are appointed to public office. All this means that there will be no relief from austerity-era taxes.
250,000 bankruptcies and 1 million people made jobless over the last 8 years have meant that income tax revenues and pension contributions have fallen sharply. Yet throughout the crisis, governments have continued to find ways to raise at least $60 billion a year from this dying economy.
Sales tax rose by 1/3 to 24%. Business tax has risen by half to 29%. This has meant that small businesses, which provide 90% of employment, have struggled to survive rather than grow. Yorgos Souvadzoglu launched this organic supermarket as a small grocery 13 years ago with his mother and brother. They ploughed more than $500,000 into it over the years and now employ 22 people, but taxes delayed their plans to expand.
Cash flow is all about being able to stock your shelves and grow. We could have opened a second shop with all the work done, and in another country we might have done so by now, but the money is tied up in paying authorities.
The Federation of Hellenic Industries says 2/3 of Greek businesses are barely surviving, while 1/4 are in imminent danger of collapse. The government believes Greece will enjoy growth of 2.5% next year, but such predictions have been confounded before. 2018 is also the year when Greece is to graduate from the Eurozone's economic supervision. The government is taking no chances of relaxing its fiscal austerity now. John Saropoulos, Al Jazeera, Athens.
Stay with us. Talking Stocks comes up after the break. Welcome back. Time now for Talking Stocks. 40 stocks traded today, of which 23 advanced, 12 declined, and 5 traded firm. The main JSE index advanced by 751 points to close at 277,681 points. The junior index also advanced, going up by 27 points to close at 2,698 points. Over 54 million units traded, valued at more than $559 million on the Jamaican market, while on the US dollar market, 2,000 units traded, valued at $460. Supreme Ventures, with over 50 million units changing hands, accounted for 94% of the market volume. Caribbean Producers was second with over 1 million units trading. JMMB Group, with over 427,000 units, accounted for less than 1% of market volume crossing the floor. Lasco Distributors was the top advancer, up 30 cents to close at $4.39, followed by Portland JSX, up 57 cents to close at $8.99, and Caribbean Cement Company, up $1.90 to close at $32.90. The main decliners were Supreme Ventures, losing 64 cents to close at $10, followed by Caribbean Producers, down 15 cents to close at $3.85, and Cable and Wireless, down 3 cents to close at 97 cents. In foreign exchange trading, the US dollar ended the day selling for $125.49. The Canadian sold for $97.02, while the British pound closed the day selling for $167.01 Jamaican. And that's all the news we have for this evening. But before we go, a recap of our top story. Technology Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley says no internet service provider will be given preferential treatment in Jamaica. The minister's reassurance comes a day after changes were made to net neutrality laws in the United States. Thanks for watching. For more content, please visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Kenil Gale. Pleasant viewing.